So the creek had been flowing for tens of thousands of years. When Todd Steiner dropped his daughter off at school, he strolled over to the creek to take a look at the fish. For as long as the people can remember, this creek, Tokalalume, as the Coast Miwok called it, has flowed freely into the Lagunitas Creek, then into Tamales Bay, and then into the Pacific Ocean. Today, we call it San Geronimo Creek, part of the Lagunitas watershed. In its clean, fresh waters, much life begins. These creeks are the nursery, and over the millenniums, the birthplace for millions of coho salmon. They remember its smell, and they know that they were born here and come home after 2 years living in the wild Pacific Ocean. 3 watersheds, the Lagunitas, the Russian, and the eel, are the largest wild salmon populations left in California. The Lagunitas, though very tiny in comparison to the other 2, host 20% of these wild salmon. These salmon, drawn back to the waters of the Tokalalume to spawn and give birth, are part of an ancient cycle. They, unlike their ancestors, now swim through a golf course and run into a dam. It's a low dam where some make it over, but many do not. Todd watches the salmon, one after another, making a swimming leap and plows face first into the side of the dam. Todd watches all this head banging and thinks, this isn't right. What have we done here? These fish need some help. And that was the beginning of SPAWM, the Salmon Protection Watershed Network.
Welcome to Jewel, California, downstream from Roy's Dam that Bob spoke of. In the 1930s, a strip of land next to Lagunitas Creek, or Tokalaluma, was developed into vacation cottages. So now summer cabins, retaining walls, patios, boat docks, and non-native plants hug the creek. The floodplains were covered and the safe enclaves from winter storms obliterated. Without these safe harbors, the immature salmon are washed to sea. A young salmon has nothing to cling to at these cemented sides. More than a dozen abandoned residences, outbuildings, wells, and septic systems had to be removed to create wetland habitat in what was once Jewel. It took some major disruption, good disruption, to start the healing process for the land. A major rewilding project racing against time to save the coho salmon on the federal endangered species list. GGNRA acquired Jewel and its twin Tokaloma in the 70s, thwarting proposed large-scale development there. In 2001, Jewel was abandoned. 2018, finally, the rewilding of this critical salmon habitat began. In 2020, the salmon death trap Bob spoke of, Roy's Dam, and the fish ladder came down too. What a project it was. In Jewel, 16 million pounds of soil were moved, side channels sculpted for salmon's respite and storms, invasives removed, woody snags deposited, and 10,000 native plants added to create a wetlands and upland habitat on the newly contoured channels. Goodbye canoe docks. Recreating the floodplains gave fish an opportunity to escape the high velocity storms and continue to grow. The biggest, strongest salmon to launch survive and come back to spawn. This is where Bob and I entered the story. In the midst of COVID isolation, we discovered SPAWM, a wonderful outdoor project populated by a dedicated and fun group of volunteers. On hands and knees in the mud, many Fridays, we planted the necessary plants to create safe habitat. In the toe nearest where water flow is the lowest, we planted brush, sedge, monkey flower, and willow. Moving up to areas underwater only in winter, we planted fern, sedge, cow parsnip, rush, and California blackberry. At Roy's Dam, using a 25-pound bar, we popped holes in the earth and popped in single blades of native grasses in the banks. You can see those in the little yellow tubes we're holding. Willows started from cuttings have blossomed into 5-foot stands. At full capacity, the SPAWM nursery carries 10,000 plants and 100 native species. Audrey Fusco, who runs this project, has a seed collecting permit for local, national, and regional parks. The seeds come right from the land. The benefits of these plantings reach far and wide, stopping erosion as the salmon need clear waters, shading the salmon nurseries. If they're too hot, the shallow pools dry out, the O2 levels decrease, and the fry die. And the vegetation also filters out chemicals coming from the nearby roads. And the salmon, Bob will continue that story.
Salmon is born in the gravel. If its eggs are not swept away by fast water or eaten by their cousin steelhead, the salmon hatch and are called fries. Salmon knows that it needs to hide to avoid being eaten by fish and birds, so the salmon look for some nice overhanging willows or a tree, a log will do, to give it shelter. A few bugs to survive the year that it will take to grow into a smolt and then begin its journey to the ocean. None of these things a golf course offers. In the early years, around 2001, a group of scrappy folks from Woodacre dedicated themselves to helping these salmon and learning what was wrong with their creek. They realized the road stopped any floodplains or side channels from developing and added pollutants to the creek. Bank erosion also was silting up those gravel nurseries, and the lack of riparian habitat gave no cover for the salmon. So early SPAWM volunteers got started replanting the stream banks. The neighbor gave permission to build a nursery in their front yard. With the blessing of fish and wildlife, they formed the Salmon Fry Bucket Brigade, coming to the rescue when drying up pools stranded baby fries. They carried them to flowing waters downstream. But the fish count gave them another clue and sounded the alarm. Salmon were spawning, but smolts were not making it back down the creek. They realized it was the fish ladder. It was not working as planned. It was actually stranding the fry and the smolt. They couldn't get over the edges during low water levels. I work with two SPAWM water biologists, Preston and Ayano, on the spring fish count.
You have 3 minutes left.
Okay. We set up a fyke net for 3 months and go over the morning count of what has swum into the pen. The fyke net at the top funnels fish in. The current guides them into a 6-inch plastic pipe that drops them into a pen net. It is filled with rocks and sticks for their comfort during their overnight stay at spawn. I help catch the fish in the pen net and put them in a bucket with an air bubbler. I also fill out the forms for that the biologists read off the data, such as species type, measurement, weight, health condition, smolt condition, new or a recapture. A new fish gets a little clip. We also count, ID, and measure all the baby fry, sometimes over 100. The smolts are the exciting fish. They have survived adolescence, not been lunched to anybody, and are ready to become adults and go to the ocean. Last October's heavy rains seduced the salmon to swim far up the stream to spawn, but then the dry winter stranded the fries in the pool. These recent rains of the last few weeks have been a godsend, giving the fry a chance to swim to better waters. Okay.
I can't believe it's only been since 2020 that Bob and I started working on the rewilding and healing of the area around Roy's Dam and Jewel Village. These photos tell the story better than my words ever could. These areas are now a thriving riparian habitat, and Todd, Mel, Nancy, Bill, the original Fry Bucket Brigade, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, that's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. This brings me hope for the future. Please note these two trees in the plastic wrap. You will see them reappear again in the following video with the environment healed and rewild. Thank you for listening to our story about SPAWM.